Menom, we should be able to get to the settlement by tomorrow, I muttered while glancing at the makeshift map that the scouts have created. With the information we obtained, if we avoid the monsters roaming around, we should be able to reach within a single day. But if we decide to fight, it could attract more monsters, and with a caravan like ours, that would be a bad choice, since not everyone could fight. We're not exactly a small group anymore, so we can't move around easily. I thought to myself with a frown. Looking at the number of monsters around, I don't think combat is avoidable, but it was a bit strange. They have small territories, but never fought amongst themselves. It was almost like they were protecting something. No, protecting wouldn't work since they are clearly hostile towards what they're protecting. All of the monsters would be glaring towards that direction with hostility. Maybe the settlement isn't the best idea. From what I can tell, the monsters are clearly intelligent like Nitha, so they would know how to launch an organized attack. If we go, there's no doubt that the settlement would be destroyed soon, so we'll just be wasting our time. I thought to myself while patting Nitha's head. Let's go back now. I've gotten the information I wanted. I said as Nitha nodded and turned back. Letting out a small cry, she informed the dread howlers to make their way back. Glancing at the monsters surrounding where the settlement would be, I couldn't help but sigh. We'll have to look for a new place. Making settlements in this new age is risky without a queen to deter the monsters. For outlanders like us, the best choice would probably be deep underground. But if we do that, we'll have to worry about monsters like worms that can sense us. With ease, we'll be in their home territory. Scratching my head, I sighed in frustration since the safest option was to keep traveling. Feeling a pat on my head, I glanced up and saw that it was Nitha's arm that was comforting me. I didn't say anything and you're patting my head like that. Are you sensitive to emotions or something? I asked with a laugh. Letting out a small growl, Nitha did a roll as I held on for dear life. I'll take that as a yes then. You know you can get the same effect by just nodding your head, right? There's no need to almost throw me to my death. Shaking her head, Nitha did another roll before letting out another growl. Rolling my eyes, I wondered about how I should break this news to the rest of the caravan. We can't give up on the settlement. Our rations are running out and resources are low. Even if the settlement is surrounded by monsters, we have monsters of our own. We can just fight it out with them. Plus, if we send some messengers to the settlement, I'm sure we can come to an agreement in clearing out the monsters. One of the adventurers spoke up after I gave them a rundown of the situation. That's true, but we're stationary if we go to the settlement. We don't have proper defenses, and doing so would be exposing us to a lot more danger. After the first wave of monsters, who knows if more powerful ones will arrive. Plus, monsters are more intelligent than you expect. The monsters surrounding the settlement haven't attacked yet, since they probably understand that attacking now would mean their death. For all we know, they could be buying time to get more powerful reinforcements. I replied, trying to get him to understand the situation. But there's no guarantee, right? Another spoke up as people started to argue amongst themselves. I tried to calm them down, but they didn't seem like they'd stop anytime soon. A few wanted to go to the settlement, while others suggested that they should leave. Eventually, the small conference broke apart, and they each returned to their tents. Huh! Sighing heavily, I sat on a log in front of the fire with a frown. Nitha, I don't think this caravan will last long. A lot of them are still too arrogant with how much power humans had. They're not used to being at the bottom of the food chain. I sighed. Slithering towards me, Nitha wrapped around me as though it was trying to hug me and nudged my face with hers. Thanks. I smiled while patting her head. Thinking about what I should do, I believe that this caravan will probably be better to just split up early. Those that want to go to the settlement can go, since they will break the group up eventually. If that happened during combat, things would be dangerous. I don't mind taking the weaker ones, but travel will be hard. Hopefully we can trade for a few resources. I thought to myself, organizing the people that wanted to go to the settlement into a group of their own in my head, I realized that 2 of them used the dread howlers and another used the rock drake. If they left, it would mean we'd only have Nitha and a single dread howler. This would make scouting and carrying equipment much harder, since I don't believe they'll be so kind as to give up the monsters that we have tamed. If anything, combat might break out if we were to be forceful. You might have to be careful, Nitha. For all I know, they might kidnap you when they leave for the settlement. I chuckled as Nitha only waved her tentacles in a shrugging manner. Smiling softly, I pat her head. Noticing a presence approaching us, I glanced back and saw that it was my friend. "Why aren't you sleeping?" I asked with a smile. Not in the mood. "The caravan will probably break up soon with the last meeting," he said as he sat down near me and glanced at Nitha before looking at the fire. "Min, what's your opinion on this?" "You didn't say anything during the meeting," I asked. "I'm not sure. Both sides have their reasons and it's understandable." "Quite. If few of us here want a guaranteed home, but doing so could open us to an attack that will just wipe out everything. On the other hand, continuing to travel could mean that we'll die on the road thanks to a lack of rations." "You're not wrong," I agreed, since food was a serious problem for us. A lot of the monsters here are high-leveled, so killing them for food was difficult without suffering great losses. If you are going to continue traveling, do you have a proper destination in mind? We don't know if there is another settlement like this nearby. We can't keep wandering around aimlessly. We've just been traveling east all this time, and some of them are even fainting from exhaustion. This settlement could become something more if we just worked on it," he asked while clenching his fists. "Asher, you've been talking to your pet more than you do with humans. What's going on? You've assigned half of our food to these monsters, hence why everyone has been more hungry than ever, and you're more concerned with how they are compared to everyone else." Hearing this question, I glanced up at him and saw that he was staring at me with serious eyes. "First of all, she's not a pipit. She's a companion that has been helping us, and second, she's called Nitha. Nothing is going on. It's just that I can't understand them when there is such a serious flaw. Holding ourselves in one place without proper defenses is asking for death. The monsters have already gotten their eyes on the settlement. Once whatever they're waiting for arrives, everything will be over," I replied in seriousness. "Plus, I'm more concerned with the monsters since they play a key part to our scouting, don't you understand? How many fights have we avoided since we spotted their ambush from the skies?" I asked as my friend gritted his teeth and stood up. "Rest early," he said before leaving. Sighing softly, I turned to Nitha, who seemed a little down. "Don't worry about it, Nitha, he's just a little stressed." I patted her head as I closed my eyes. I knew that my friend probably wanted to continue to travel, but without a clear destination, it was a risky choice. "I think the group will split tomorrow. I'll go around asking those that wanted to continue traveling for now and see what they think. The caravan will definitely shrink," I thought. Staying with Nitha for a little while, I went to sleep. However, I didn't expect what I saw when I woke up. Those that wanted to go to the settlement had taken everything and left us with nothing. Only Nitha was left along with 4 others. Standing in the empty campsite that only had a few tents, I clenched my fist and sighed. Standing around the now abandoned camp with the other 4, I realized that they were all the ones that had voiced their thoughts about continuing travel. What the fuck? Did they really just abandon us with nothing but one monster? There's not even any rations or a spare change of clothing. Gordon, one of the scouts that planned to join me, shouted out in frustration, and he grabbed an old log and slammed it against the floor. He had short brown hair and brown eyes. His clothes were tattered, and the equipment he had left out has been stolen. Looking into his eyes, I could see that he was truly pissed about the situation, since it hasn't even been a full day, and yet they had left us with nothing. "What do we do now, then? We're already hungry due to the lack of rations," Cadme called out with a sigh. She was the one in charge of distributing the rations before. Her hair was blonde and it reached her lower back. She had a pair of ruby eyes and wore a simple dress that was dirty around the edges thanks to the days of travel. The other 2 were a pair of twins that didn't speak and only used magic to speak, by writing words in the air. They were both male and had black hair and green eyes. One of them had stitches around the corner of his mouth, but I never asked them about that, since it might be a delicate subject. The one with stitches was called Eric, while the one without stitches was called Lyle. Every time they ate, Eric would eat with small mouthfuls so as to not damage the stitches, while Lyle would do the same, so that Eric didn't feel left out. Maybe we should see if we can catch up to those that left. They can't have gone too far considering where the settlement is. Maybe we can even get some of our supplies back. Eric suggested, but I shook my head. Forget it. It's not worth the trouble seeing as though we might be fighting against a settlement if we go. We'll try to kill one of the lower-level monsters surrounding the place without being seen, and use that as food for now. Since it's just the 4 of us, rationing food would be a bit easier. At least they left Nitha, so we still have a way to scout. I sighed. Seeing that my friend has left, he was probably trying to persuade me last night, but gave up seeing as how I was adamant about continuing to travel. In terms of combat, I guess you can leave it to me, Nitha and Gordon, since we've fought in small skirmishes before. It shouldn't be too difficult. Eric, Lyle, and Cadme, you 3 will be responsible for the miscellaneous stuff, I guess, since me and Gordon are not that proficient with everything else. I smiled, wanting to keep the morale up by talking about something else. As we cleared up what's left of the camp, we started to travel east with 4 tents. For food, we decided to look for some fruits for now, but that was only a temporary solution. Even though I told the others to not bother, I couldn't help but clench my fist whenever I thought of what happened. All of my effort, gone in the wind. I still remember what they said when I helped them, but all of it seemed fake as they left us without a single ration. Who knows, if we're unlucky, we'll be dead tomorrow. Gritting my teeth, I took several breaths to calm my mind. Nitha would pat my head or nudge me slightly to try to cheer me up, but I couldn't shake this feeling of rage inside me. As we traveled towards the east, we started to feel a little tired from not eating all day, so me and Gordon decided to scout for some monsters that we could potentially kill. We had Nitha remember the temporary campsite that we had created, so that the other 3 weren't left behind. I say we should go to the settlement and kill one of the monsters around the perimeter. That's the only guarantee right now, Gordon suggested as I nodded my head. Hey, Gordon, I got a question for you, I called out since I wanted to get this off my mind. What is it? Why did you suggest continuing to travel? I'm just curious about your views, I asked. Because I don't trust people of authority, especially in a time like this. You don't know this, but before I was part of the slums, and those that we worked for, always exploited those that were weaker. All of our earnings, food, would go to the leaders, and the leftovers would be for us. I figured that the leaders of the settlement would probably be the same, so I wanted to keep traveling. At least we'll be our own boss and not get exploited. Am I right? Gordon smiled as I chuckled. Renobis. Sounds like you had a pretty bad upbringing. You got that right. I was actually freed from all of this not too long ago, you know. It was during this year, and there was a raid on all of the factions within the slums. It all started since one of the factions called Ivory Cobra started to develop a drug that caught the attention of the authorities, and all the adventurers were called into action. I was already thinking about leaving, but this just gave me a better excuse. Gordon shrugged, as he could still remember the kind of life he led in Kairosa. Oh? I remember seeing that in the news. Apparently, there was a secret individual that gave them the information, but they weren't able to track it back to anyone, I replied, remembering the news I saw quite a few months ago. If I could see the one that indirectly helped me, I would thank them since they gave me a new chance in life. Gordon grinned. However, our talk was cut short when a strong pressure washed over us. It felt like we were ants, and a demon just set their eyes upon us. Even Nitha was scared as she quickly dived down and urged us to hide behind her body. Glancing towards the source of the pressure, I realized that it was from the settlement. A shadow slowly appeared in the clouds as a scaled underbelly revealed itself. Primordial Dragon of Air, LVL 600. Looking at the 4-winged dragon that had just appeared, the 3 of us held our breaths, afraid that it had come attack us after noticing us. Luckily, it didn't seem to care as it opened its mouth. Mana surged towards it as a high-level magic. Circle was formed. Next thing we knew, we were blown back by a shockwave. Even with Nitha shielding us, the force still sent our HP towards the red zone as I could feel my organs shake from the impact. Forcing myself to glance up, I could see a giant tornado sweeping up the settlement as the buildings were shredded. To dust, clenching my fist, I couldn't help but curse in my mind. If only they were a little more patient, they wouldn't have been caught in this. I thought in my mind. But regardless of what I thought, we couldn't stay. Dragging Gordon by the arm, I called out to Nitha. "Nitha! We need to run!" I shouted. Nodding her head, Nitha turned around and grabbed both me and Gordon before placing us on her back, rushing towards the temporary camp that we had made. We knew that we should leave as quickly as possible. I could hear the cries of monsters behind us as they charged into the settlement. Glancing back, I watched as the dragon observed everything before flying back into the clouds. When we arrived, back at the camp, we could see the three waiting with pale faces since they saw everything from a distance. "We've already packed up. We can leave," Cadmi said as I nodded my head. While Nitha couldn't carry everyone on her back, she could use her tentacles to grab them as the five of us quickly evacuated the area. As we were running, I couldn't help but think back to my friend. If only he had trusted me a little more. If only he had decided to stay for another day, there would be 6 of us rather than 5. He's made his choice and I've made mine. But maybe he was lucky since he didn't need to live in this kind of world anymore. The day ahead could make us wish that we had died to the dragon, but I wanted to push on. I believed that there was hope. Leaving behind the ruined settlement, the 5 of us continued east, with an empty stomach. The trip to Tokyo was going to take roughly 2 days if they continued using the city. The main reason for this was because they were looking out for any survivors that they came across on the road. With Kanai taking charge of helping them to the city, she was also able to see their true nature due to the situation that they were placed in. Quite a few of the survivors didn't hesitate to abandon the others, and those with good intentions usually died first. After the first few rescues, Shiro didn't have any doubts regarding Kanai being able to complete this. Naturally, if she was uncomfortable, Shiro would force her to rest. Tapping her finger on the table, Shiro was checking up on what everyone was doing in the city. Isilia and Lyrica are training with each other while occasionally helping others. They would also join a scouting team that left the city to kill some monsters that were roaming around the ground for exp. Yin's being Yin, but she's actually helping some of the mages train with fire magic. Considering the nature of her own, in magic and control, she was probably the best teacher they can ask for. Shiro mused to herself, but remembering the price for Yin's training, Shiro couldn't help but sigh since it was food. She'll only teach you once she was satisfied with the food, but those that have been taught were always satisfied. Where did I go wrong? Why is this Yin nothing like the one I saw before? She was so nice and cooked often too. Even though this one knows how to cook, she is too lazy to do it. Shiro sighed heavily. Maybe you pampered her a bit too much. Nimue chuckled as she had returned to the Mana realm to rest. She had been going around helping people out a little, but she also needed a break from work. Maybe, at least the others aren't like her. Irim has finished setting up a few mage towers around the city center and filled it up with tools to help her experiments. The mages are quite grateful for this too. Seems like she's become the guild master of a mages guild or something, haha. Sylvia is responsible for the healers, so I guess she'll be something like the head of the healer guild. Shiro chuckled, since they have been making small branches in the city that are directly linked to their classes. With Arim being the pseudo, a leader of the mages, she would share some of her experiences along with resources that the city has collected, so that all the mages could become stronger collectively. Of course, the more trustworthy someone is, the more resources they got. This was the same for Sylvia with her healing guild, Chen Yu with the assassins, and Helion with his blacksmiths. Madison was busy with solidifying her power over the entire demon race, so she wasn't able to spend as much time with Helion as she had thought, but Helion chose to have the blacksmithing guild to be located a little closer to the demon platform. Keiko was trying her best to reach Tier 6 and was in a similar state to Lysandra. Kiyomi was training with her father, Koji, while Mio was helping out in the military when it comes to sword training. Sheena, Oren, and Akes are making good progress with their mech training. Their weapon training is falling behind a little, but I think I can fit it in their schedules. The mechs are installed with guns that they can use if the mech gets destroyed, so they can't slack off when it comes to weapons. No point having a powerful gun without being able to use it. Shiro thought while glancing at their schedules that were packed to the brim. Narrowing her eyes, Shiro was tempted to remove some of the time used for sleep and change it to weapon. Training. Don't do that. The poor lot needs as much sleep as they can get. Nimue's smile twitched, since Shiro would probably just take out sleep eventually. Pfft. I won't do that. Shiro smiled while replacing some of the mech training with weapon training. Right. Glancing out of the window, Shiro could see the second city following behind Asheria, and all of its functions were working perfectly. Everything was balanced, and it worked like a charm. She hadn't thought up of a name for the city yet, but that wasn't high on her priority list. As for Estrella, she had recovered earlier, and proceeded to work on making the gateway that would help filter people out, after checking up on everyone. There wasn't much else for Shiro to do, as she returned to her room and saw Lysandra sitting with furrowed brows. It's already been 2 days since the start of the New Age, and yet Lysandra hadn't shown any signs of waking up, which caused Shiro to sigh. Making a handkerchief, Shiro wiped the sweat away and sat next to Lysandra. Good luck, Lisa, Shiro muttered, as she couldn't help but worry about her safety. Standing above Asheria, Shiro looked at the city that was once known as Tokyo, and couldn't help but shake her head. The prideful tower that used to represent the headquarters of the rising sun had long collapsed, as the entire city was now filled with a malevolent aura that seemed to consume anything that it touched. There was not a single person walking around, as the entire city was filled to the brim with monsters. The worst part of all this was that Shiro could sense human souls within the city. Even though her mana senses seemed to be blocked by the miasma, her power over souls told her that human souls were in the city. This isn't exactly the best situation, is it? Shiro muttered, since it would make helping the people a little difficult. Indeed. I think it's probably best for you to choose a small group to journey with you, since we don't know what kind of strange effects might be applied once you enter the city. If your senses are getting blocked out here, who knows what else might happen? Nimue warned with a frown. Ranovace! I know, but at least my soul-controlling abilities are still useful. I'll see if I can recruit anyone with abilities that are related to souls. If not, I'll just get Lyrica to follow me then, since she has been training all this time. It's good for her to step out for a bit. Shiro muttered as she sent a notification for all the people in the city. It was a recruitment, for those that have abilities in relations to souls. The recruitment mentioned that they'll be going on an excursion with Shiro to the city of Tokyo in order to investigate what had happened, along with potentially helping the people that have been trapped in there. Naturally, there were good rewards, thanks to the high risks of this mission, as they are venturing into the unknown. There was no guarantee that Shiro would be able to help them, but she'll try her best at keeping them alive if danger was to appear. Despite the rarity of abilities in relation to souls, there were still quite a few people that applied through the recruitment. Massaging her eyes, she decided to filter them out a little, since taking 100 people into the city was a little bit too big for a small group. But before she filtered them out, she needed to pay a visit to Isilia and Lyrica, since Shiro wanted to take Lyrica with her. Teleporting to their house, she knocked on the door, since they should be resting right now, and as she had expected, Isilia opened the door not too long after her knock. Sorry about not informing you of my visit earlier. Shiro waved as Isilia chuckled. Come on in, we're having a break anyway. I'm guessing this has something to do with your recent recruitment post, Isilia asked as Shiro nodded. How did you... No? Pfft, it's kind of obvious, haha. So who do you need, me or Lyrica? Isilia asked as she gestured for Shiro to sit down. I'm thinking of taking Lyrica since she has been training quite diligently. Shiro smiled. She is in need of some more live combat experience, so this would be good for her. Plus, from what I saw, it seems like this excursion would be linked to ghosts and spiritual beings that are hard to hurt with just physical power. Isilia smiled. Yup. Ghosts might become more common, so I want to see how Lyrica deals with it. The best option would be to use elements like fire or lightning, but some have high resistances. Plus, the others are a little busy right now. Shiro smiled. I'm sure she'll be fine. We refined her powers a little, so now her elements focus around fire and I suppose something similar to nature. Though as an elf, nature comes with the bloodline, Isilia replied while handing Shiro some juice from her fridge. Thanks. If she's focusing on fire, it might be worth it to see if she can get some help from Yin then, since she's a phoenix. There's no need to rush. You'll see her power for yourself when she fights. I'll warn you though, even I was a little surprised. Isilia smiled as Shiro raised her eyebrow. Interesting? While Shiro was talking to Isilia, Lyrica was getting ready. She knew that this excursion was going to be related to ghosts, so she wanted to research a little before leaving. This was okay for Shiro since she wanted to arrange a time for all the people that registered to gather anyway. Having them go to a building near the town center, she was going to filter it down to only 8 people to keep the group small. Wouldn't it take a while for you to filter out all of them? Isilia asked, since she had figured that Shiro would have wanted to sort this out quickly. Don't worry, I have an idea. I have an idiot who's now quite familiar with souls since I keep giving them to him. I was thinking about having him as the examiner. We'll see how they fare against him. Shiro grinned as she summoned the lantern and placed it on the table. Oi, who are you calling an idiot? The ancient terror clicked his tongue as Shiro looked at the lantern. Who else is here? Shiro smirked. I plan to have him assess the recruits. I want to see if they are able to harm him at all since he's in soul form. Shiro shrugged. Bah, as if some little shits can harm me. It'll feel like an ant trying to bite me. The ancient terror boasted as Shiro snapped her fingers. Suddenly wires wrapped around his soul within the lantern as lightning started to flicker. Holy shit! Gah! Fine! I'll assess them properly! He shouted out as his soul flickered from the pain. Izzy, should just be obedient from the start. If you do things properly, I won't taser you. Shiro grinned. Che, no respect for workers at all. What a tyrant. The ancient terror clicked his tongues. Shiro didn't say anything except raise a finger that was flickering with lightning. I'll do it properly! Good. Smiling in satisfaction, Shiro dismissed the lantern, as the ancient terror could only grumbled in annoyance. Talking to Isilia for a little bit, Lyrica soon appeared with her armor, already equipped. I'm ready now. She smiled as Shiro nodded her head. Well, I think we should go now since there are quite a few people that we need to filter through. Shiro smiled as Isilia nodded her head. Take care out there, you two. Don't let your guards down, okay? Isilia smiled as Lyrica nodded her head. Watching the two leave, Isilia smiled softly and prayed for their safety before closing the door. So, how has it been? You've been quite busy with all of this management of the city, Lyrica asked as Shiro sighed. It's been quite busy making sure everything is working, but overall it's not too bad. Everyone else has also been busy with their own roles, especially Madi, though it's good that she has Asfeel helping her out. Shiro smiled. In Nub's men, it felt like just yesterday that we were all students in the school, and now we're pretty much the strongest this world has to offer. Before the new age, I guess. You're a demigod and the leader of spirits, while Madi is a demon queen. Lyrica chuckled. You're not far behind yourself, you know. Shiro glanced back. To think the shy girl from before that got bullied actually became the sword saintess. If she continues at this pace, it won't be long for her to reach tier 6. Shiro thought with a smile. What is it? Lyrica asked as she could. See Shiro staring at her. Nothing. I just remembered what happened a year ago. I still have this, you know? Shiro grinned as she pulled out a book from her. Looking at the label, Lyrica widened her eyes as a blush appeared on her face. Efficient. Notebook for learning reading and writing. Creator, Lyrica Wallenstein. Ah, you still have it? She asked with embarrassment, as Shiro nodded her head with a grin. Yup, I suppose you can say that it's the first gift that I received in this world. Shiro laughed as she stored it back into her inventory. Ah, so I gave you the first gift, Lyrica muttered, as Shiro nodded her head. Smiling softly, she shook her head before looking up at Shiro. Say, Shiro, how did you and my mum meet? Can you tell me about some of the adventurers that you had together? Lyrica asked, with a smile. You want to know that? Sure, I guess. But it's a bit boring since the things we've experienced this year are crazier than what me and your mum had to go through. Shiro chuckled. That's fine. Well, in that case, then, I'll start with the first meeting. As they walked towards where all of the adventurers were gathered, Shiro told the story about how she met Isilia as well as the adventurers they had to go through. Surprisingly, Shiro and Isilia didn't actually have that good of a start together, and would often argue with Shiro just ignoring everything in the end. However, after a few close calls with only each other to rely on, they eventually became friends that understood one another. Soon, they arrived at the building and the story had to be cut short. Pushing open the doors, Shiro could see a rather sizable crowd had gathered, as all of them bowed to her in respect. There's no need for bowing, haha. As you are all aware, today we'll be going on a scouting mission to Tokyo. The city has now been transformed into something rather sinister, and my senses aren't able to penetrate the miasma. It's thanks to the power over souls that I could actually sense people being kept in the city, so our main goal is to find out where they are and perhaps save them if possible. Shiro explained while gesturing for everyone to sit down for now. Walking up to the center stage, she smiled as Lyrica stood, behind her like a guard. The dangers of this journey are high, and I can't guarantee your survival due to the strangeness of the city. However, as I have mentioned in the advert, I will try my best at keeping you alive. First of all, we know that the city is filled with ghosts, so physical attacks are useless. We'll be relying on soul and elemental magic. Primarily soul, since it was the only way I could get a general understanding of the city, so we can assume that it is the key to this city, Shiro explained, as she showed a few holograms of Tokyo that had been transformed. Since there are quite a few of you, I will be picking 8 out of everyone, since we want to keep our group small so as to not draw attention. It is also easier to manage things with just 10 of us in total. To determine who will join in the mission, I will have all of you demonstrate your control over souls against a little subordinate of mine. He has a foul mouth and attitude, but do not be afraid since he's rather docile once I step in. Shiro smiled as she tapped her foot. A magic circle appeared next to her as the soul of the ancient terror was pulled out of the lantern for now. Finally some room to move, but you could have at least given me a physical body or something. The ancient terror grinned as he swept his eyes across everyone that had gathered in the hall. Seeing this creature, they were able to sense the foulness of his soul as many tensed up and some even almost puked, but kept it in. He will be the assistant examiner, target dummy. I don't expect you to deal a massive amount of damage considering his background, so don't be discouraged. Shiro smiled as she slowly raised her hand and slapped down. Bang! Crashing against the floor, the ancient terror struggled to stand. Up as he could only grip his teeth. Violent woman, he cursed, as Shiro only smiled. A hallowed spear formed behind the ancient terror as he paled, understanding what she was threatening to do. Staying silent, he could only cry out in his mind. Why did I have to be captured by a woman like her? Seeing Shiro being able to restrain such a beast. The adventurers were amazed as they organized themselves into single file quickly and started to demonstrate their powers over the soul. As the demonstration continued, Shiro started to note down the key figures that impressed her the most. While their control over souls couldn't compare to her, whose true spirit nature was linked to souls, it was definitely impressive. Some of them were even able to leave a mark on the ancient terror's soul, despite how powerful he was. Soon, there was only one participant left. Clashing his fists together, a gold and red flame lit up on his fists as he entered a stance and narrowed his eyes at the ancient terror. Oh, his flames have purification properties. Shiro raised her eyebrow as she immediately recognized the flame to be one that was focused on exorcising ghosts rather than destructive power. It burns and purifies evil-natured souls while not damaging the surroundings. Of course, the impact of each blow is enhanced, so a barrier is needed if she wants to contain the destruction caused to just this room. Flexing her finger, a barrier was created around the room. You may start. Shiro smiled as the man nodded and dashed towards the ancient terror. Yawning slightly, the ancient terror only watched the man approach before raising his hand to block his attack. Bang! Blocking the strike, the ancient terror was a little surprised to see his hand get blown back from the force. Ho! Shifting his shoulder, he braced himself for the next strike. Bang! Since he was prepared for this strike, the impact didn't send his body back, but he smirked from the force. Cracking his neck, he narrowed his eyes. Hey, you're pretty good at massages. Why don't you be my private massager from now on? The ancient terror taunted, as the man only frowned but didn't say anything self. Stomping down, he crouched into a horse stance and slammed his palm that radiated with this golden fire against the ancient terror's stomach. Suddenly, fire exploded out of the ancient terror's back as Shiro waved her hand and contained the flames before it could hit anyone. While it didn't do any damage to the surroundings, it would still hurt someone. Without giving the beast in front of him a chance to react, he followed up the palm strike with a punch to the jaw using his other hand, forcing the ancient terror to stumble back a little. The man narrowed his eyes as the flames spread to his arms. Gritting his teeth, his physique seemed to grow a little as he stomped down and unleashed a flurry of blows against the ancient terror's body. Each hit that struck against the body would leave a burn mark on his soul as it seemed to flicker. "Oi, tyrant woman, can I retaliate?" the ancient terror asked as Shiro raised her eyebrow. Glancing towards the man, she wondered if she should let them duke it out. "You've already passed, but if you want to fight this idiot properly, you can, I guess. I'll heal you up, so don't worry about the injuries. But let me warn you, there's a 95% chance that you'll get code in one hit." Shiro warned, but the man only shook his head. "Ranobe's. It's okay. I wish to fight him," he replied, as he prepared himself. "Ayya!" "The man is asking to be killed." Nimue face-palmed. Poor man. Atty nodded by the side. Izuel didn't say anything as she only shook her head silently and hoped that he wouldn't get traumatized. The ancient terror only looked like a puppy because it was Shiro who kept him under control. But if Shiro allowed him to do whatever he wanted, he would turn back to being a menace. "Well, you heard him. You can fight back." Shiro shrugged. Hearing that he could retaliate, the ancient terror only laughed as a malevolent aura exploded out of him. Feeling the malevolent aura, the man wanted to take a step back but fought against this thought and held his ground. Twisting his body, he kicked towards the ancient terror, who caught it easily with his hand. "I'll show you why even gods have trouble with me," he grinned. Suddenly, a crushing pressure bore down on the man as he immediately threw up a mouthful of blood. "Disable him and I'll disable you," Shiro warned as chains appeared around him. Yes, I'll stop now." The ancient terror laughed and let go of the leg. Stepping back, he watched as the man forced himself back on his feet while wiping away the blood. Closing his eyes, fire erupted out of his body, and the injuries to his soul were healed in an instant. Taking a deep breath, he looked at Shiro with a new impression, since the ancient terror was more fearsome than what he had initially expected. For someone to exert such soul pressure, he couldn't imagine what he was like when he still had his physical body. For her to be able to command this beast like it's a pet, her powers must be unfathomable. He thought to himself as he returned to his seat. Going through the list that she had compiled, she called out the 8 that she had picked and dismissed the rest. Within the 8, there were 5 that could deal a decent amount of damage, while the other 3 were more utility-based. The first of the 3 could read souls for information. The second could give ghosts orders that are easy to follow, but could not override their nature. At most, it'll be asking ghosts to go somewhere, but that was helpful in itself. As for the last person, they were able to mask their presence completely from ghosts and beings in a soul state. Of course, the camouflage through sight was a little weaker, but its primary job was to hide from the other senses. When performed in front of the ancient terror, he could tell that she was there through his eyes, but couldn't sense her at all, so that ability would be very helpful. Right then, since everyone has been gathered, let's make our way to the city. I'll be giving you some communication devices, potions amongst other things, so that we can keep in contact. Remember, our first priority is to save the people instead of killing ghosts. Fight if you have to when backed into a corner, but don't force it. If you are in danger and I cannot teleport to you, you can pray to me, and I have a skill which lets me lend you some of my power. That should be able to help you get through the danger you meet, but it's not guaranteed, since we're not sure if my powers are limited in this city, understood? Shiro explained as they all nodded. Handing out the earpieces and a box of nanobots, Shiro had Lyrica fetch them some potion from the storage. "What are these boxes?" one of the fighters asked. "It's a very versatile tool. If you need anything, just tell me, and I'll make it for you. For example, if you need a weapon, I can make you something decent." Shiro explained as she snapped her finger. Suddenly, the box of nanobots started to shake before turning into a sword that had several skills embedded into it. "Wait, it can be anything I want?" he asked in surprise as Shiro nodded her head. "Just tell me and I'll see if I can make it." Testing out the box of nanobots some more, the adventurers were surprised at how versatile it was, and if they could arm everyone up with something like this, they could find the right tools in the wild. However, the problem with this is that Shiro had to be the one to make it since they didn't know the blueprints off by heart. If lots of requests come in at once, even Shiro would struggle at distributing the right commands to the right boxes. Leading them to the hangar, Shiro opened the doors and looked down at the city. "We'll be jumping down now. We'll stick as a main group first, and depending on what happens, I'll split us up, okay? Always keep in contact since we don't know when we could possibly be separated. There are ghosts that mimic voices too, so be careful of that," Shiro warned before jumping down. Following behind her, all of them jumped down after her. As she was free falling, Shiro narrowed her eyes as she could barely make out a few ghosts that were roaming around. Their levels averaged around the 300s, to 400s with 1 or 2 at the peak of Tier 5. Most of the people here are around the average level, so we should be fine. Lyrica is talented, so she can skip levels, and I can deal with any Tier 6s that we might come across. We should be fine here, Shiro thought to herself. Landing on the ground, Shiro furrowed her brows before setting up a few drones to scout. Entering the miasma, Shiro immediately noticed that her senses were blocked, as she couldn't sense anything past 2 meters by relying on her mana. Troublesome, she thought to herself, but shook her head. At least her senses regarding souls were fine, and she could already sense a few human souls not too far away. "We'll see if we can capture or kill a ghost. Rachel, I want you to read its soul to see if you can get a grasp on where the survivors are, okay?" Shiro ordered, as Rachel was the one that owned the soul-reading ability. "Understood." Rachel nodded, her head with a serious expression. "Good. Lyrica, you and Mordrak will be taking vanguard while the rest will be covering our backs since we're not familiar with this place. I'll be in the center so that I can cover whichever area we're being attacked from. Indri and Casper will be in the center with me." Shiro continued, as Mordrak was the one who impressed her with his attack power. With both Lyrica and Mordrak acting as vanguard, they should be able to deal with most of the monsters that appear in front of them. Indri was the one that could give ghosts orders, and Casper could hide their presence. Moving through the city, Shiro made sure to scan the area whenever she could to make sure that ghosts wouldn't ambush them. Of course, when ghosts arrive, she'll leave most of the combat to them, so that they can get a bit of XP themselves. For a level 600 like her, the XP from level 300s was minuscule. "One's arriving in 10 seconds. Mordrak, you're closer to it," Shiro called out with a smile as they were dashing through the alleys. "Got it." Mordrak nodded his head as he slammed his knuckles together. Bang! Golden fire exploded out as his arms were covered in flames. Narrowing his eyes, he grabbed the ghost's head the moment it appeared. Without even giving it a chance to scream, he slammed his head against the ground before coating his foot in flames and stomping down on the neck. Ripping off the head, the ghost was killed instantly. Seeing this, Shiro smiled, since a low level ghost like this stood no chance against Mordrak. For a person that could do some decent damage to the ancient terror, he would probably be fine, even against a level 500 ghost. The main thing with ghosts is that while they're powerful and have strong defenses against physical attacks, if one used skills that targeted ghosts specifically, they could be dealt with easily. But in Lyrica's case, she didn't have any skills that targeted the souls, so she should be theoretically struggling. However, her powers with fire were helping her cut through them with ease. Whenever a ghost appeared, it would be cut in half. The 4 attackers that were placed at the back, could only watch the two killing ghosts with ease, while they had to struggle a little, since their firepower wasn't enough for them to end them in one hit. "Are you able to find anything from their memories?" Shiro asked as Rachel had been trying to read their memories to find out where the survivors are being kept. "Not yet. All of them have been able to sense humans and some demi-humans within the city, but the exact locations haven't been found. On a more alarming note, they're all being ordered by what seems to be higher-ranked ghosts that are also taking orders," Rachel replied as Shiro furrowed her brows. That's a bit concerning. There might be something similar to a queen, ranked entity in this city. But since there is no anchor here, they might just be scouting things out. Keep an eye out for things, and make sure you stay close to each other," Shiro ordered as they nodded their heads. As they progressed deeper into the city, the miasma started to thicken, and Shiro had to make gas masks for everyone in order to filter out the poison in the air. This poison would cause one to hallucinate the longer they stayed in it, so for a scouting mission, it would have been quite disruptive. Of course, Shiro was able to travel without a mask thanks to her ridiculously high resistance to poison and negative effects. After a certain point, they could no longer see the sky anymore, as the sun was completely blocked out, making it seem like it's night even though it was early in the day. All of the lights would flicker on and off, while the store signs did the same. Ghastly howls would be heard, and cold winds would brush past them. During this trip, Shiro had been trying to sense where the survivors were, but similar to what happened. With the ghosts, her senses told her that humans were here, but the location was hidden. Maybe they have something that wards off the senses, Shiro thought to herself, since it would help them in a place like this. Continuing through the city, they killed any low-level ghosts that they came across and read its memories. They were able to avoid large areas filled with high-level ghosts, since finding survivors were their main goal. Everything else was secondary. Sending out a web of nanobots through the ground once more, Shiro tried to sense where the humans are, but the result was the same. Nothing. "I think we'll go for another hour or so before heading back. We'll try a B. Different entrance next time," Shiro called out. Tokyo was quite big, so finding survivors was never going to be easy. The best they could do now was just to persevere. As they continued for another hour, Rachel managed to recover shocking news from one of the souls. Apparently, there would be waves of humans appearing around the city. If they were cornered, one would be sacrificed for the others to live. The one that is sacrificed will be used as bait. Hearing this, Shiro decided to continue the scouting since she wanted to find out a rough estimation of where the humans appear. If they could guess the location or the area of activity, they would be able to pin them down and find them. Taking a deep breath, I tried to suppress the shivering of my body while looking out into the streets. Every time we did a supply run, one or two of us would always be sacrificed, and we never knew who was going to be the next one. After Tokyo changed and ghosts started to appear, we were forced underground in order to survive, and one of the exorcists, it managed to set up a formation that prevents the ghosts from sensing us. It helped us establish a safe sanctuary, but it also worked as a tool of manipulation for the exorcists that realized they were now the top of the hierarchy. Beautiful girls would be taken by the male exorcists, while handsome males would be taken by the female. Of course, we could try to revolt, but doing so meant the barrier would be gone. None of us are able to fight the ghosts, so it was suicide. The exorcists were fine, since they could fight the ghosts with their talismans. Even though it's been 2 days, it felt like months for us, since we could never tell when it's day or night in here. "What are you waiting around for? Get ready, we're going for a bigger supply run this time," the leader of our group called out as he could see the panic in our eyes. Since we're going for a bigger run, more baits were needed. Even though we didn't want to be bait, if we abandon our tasks, we would be killed regardless. So it was better to just join the mission. At least there was a chance of survival. Grabbing some cloth to wrap around our faces, it was the best we can do when it comes to the miasma. We didn't know what the long-term effects were just yet, but quite a few of the supply runners had gotten seriously ill from the large intake of this miasma. Even the exorcists who controlled everything admitted that they couldn't revert the effects. As the door opened, I breathed in my first mouthful of contaminated air and ran forward as fast as I could. Once we're out of the barrier, the ghosts will be able to sense us, and once that happens, they surge towards our area. We needed to work fast if we wanted to live. The exorcists have placed a few barriers around the place which acts as safe zones. For us to hide our presence, but compared to the main base, it was nothing. It could only serve as a temporary shelter that would lose its effectiveness the more it's used. It hasn't even been a minute, and I could already hear the howls echoing from the distance as I quickly entered a shop and grabbed everything that had a long shelf life. Stuffing it into my inventory, I was about to turn back when the leader grabbed my shoulder. "We're going for a bigger run. This isn't enough," he reminded. Hearing this, I could only grit my teeth and try to fit more into my inventory with the knowledge that ghosts could appear at any moment. "Is this enough?" I asked in a shaky voice. Showing the leader all of the rations that I've collected, I hoped that he would say yes, since I didn't want to stay in this cursed place any longer than needed. Looking at the things that I've laid out, he sighed and nodded his head. "It's not enough, but that's fine. Take some of mine to reach the required amount and head back." He smiled and handed me some of his rations. Every time we finish a supply run, we would have our harvest checked to see if it meets the minimum requirements, since those that don't work aren't allowed to eat. But those that don't eat won't be able to perform to their best, so getting rations becomes harder. If we're discovered to keep our rations, we would be killed in the most painful way. We don't know who will snitch, so eating in the base was very dangerous. But despite all of this, the leader was actually giving me more rations so that I could meet the minimum requirements. "If you get more, eat them since you won't be able to eat it back at the base. The bastards will take it away from you." He patted my head and ventured deeper into the store so that he could reach the minimum requirements. Biting my lip, I hesitated, in for a while before choosing to chase after him. Even though I didn't want to die, I can't leave someone like the leader to die. Kindness like his was rare, and watching it disappear into the jaws of a ghost wasn't what I wanted. Running after him, I was confused as to why he was ignoring some of the better rations that were laid out. It wasn't hard to miss, so I picked it up for him. Maybe the miasma was getting to him, but the more I followed him, the more confused I got. Eventually, I started to tail him rather than try to catch up. I didn't know why I haven't called out to him yet, but something in my heart tells me that I probably shouldn't do that. My worries were proven when I saw the bags upon bags of rations that he had stashed away under some rubble. I recognized some of them to belong to bait that was eaten by the ghosts, so it was a question of why he had them in this area. Hearing a low hiss behind me, my entire body tensed up as my face paled. While I was focused on following the leader, I didn't realize that a ghost had actually snuck up on me. I didn't want to look back, but I could already feel the touch of a cold, elongated finger brushing the back of my neck. Holding back my scream, I jumped out of cover and rolled under its grasp. Ignoring the cries behind me, I ran towards the leader to snap his head towards me in shock. "Shh! Shouldn't you be running to the base now?" He cried out in shock while hiding the rations once more. Wanting to follow him, I was kicked in the chest as some of my ribs were broken from the kick. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, I watched the face of the leader twist in anger. "Don't follow me, trash. I was going to get your rations after the ghosts ate you, but I'll have to use my own stash now. Fucking useless, Kent." He cursed while gripping what seemed to be a jewel of sorts. I recognized that jewel since it was something that one of the exorcists would carry with them, and it helped you evade a ghost's notice as long as you're not seen by them. So his kindness was fake and it was just another way to get bait, huh? I thought to myself as I was picked off the ground slowly by the ghost. As I was being raised into the air, I saw a long shadow appear around the corner in front of the leader as two claws punctured his stomach. The arms of the claws started to pulsate as if pumping something, and the leader's body started to bloat. His cries were cut off as he soon exploded into a mass of iridescent worms that was eating away at a translucent figure of the leader. Once they finished consuming him, the worms would return to the shadow which faded away. With just me and the ghost behind me left in the area, I gritted my teeth and looked back at my attacker. Its body was shriveled up with bones ripping apart its skin. Bridge blood could be seen around the joint areas, as maggots swarmed the torso along with the neck. Its head was connected to a long neck, and it was that of a beautiful woman. Despite the beauty, there was a creepiness to it that I couldn't pin down, but it gave me the chills. Watching her elongated fingers bring me closer to her face, I could see the face split apart into 4 sections as a mouth filled with teeth was revealed. Squeezing my eyes shut, I curled up into a ball, hoping that the pain would be over in an instant. However, the pain that I received was a little different. Urgh! Falling to the ground, I clutched my ribs in pain, since they were broken by the leader. Glancing up, I could see a man with a gas mask and golden fire flickering on his arms. Ripping the female ghost in half, he looked towards me before tapping, something on his ear. I managed to get one, but he's injured and the other one is dead, the man said. It seems to be a phone of sorts, and he was talking to someone, but I couldn't help but wonder if he was friendly or not. With what the leader had done, I wasn't sure if I could judge people properly anymore. Got it. Come on! I'm going to take you somewhere safe. The man glanced down at me. Picking me up without waiting for my reply, he jumped into the air and used the building as platforms. Any ghosts that appeared would be killed by him with ease, as I wondered if he was an exorcist or not. But even the exorcists would have some difficulty slaying these ghosts, but he made it seem so easy. After a few moments, I could see a group of people standing in a store with a white-haired woman giving instructions with a map in front of her. Take him to the side. I'll ask him some questions in a second, the woman said, as she didn't even glance towards us. Snapping her finger, a green flame appeared on her fingertips as I flinched, remembering what the man's fire did. However, when the flame touched me, I only felt soothed, and my injuries started to disappear. Placing me down by the side, the man ran out of the store after the woman told him more information about where we are. Seeing the other runners in place as well, I understood that we were probably being saved. Goodness, where the hell are they even coming from? Next thing I knew, I could sense the souls of survivors out of nowhere. Shiro frowned, since they could have walked past a base without even noticing anything. Well, they'll need to hide themselves to survive, so I guess it's no different when it comes to other humans. Nimue shrugged. True, but still. I'm just annoyed that it made rescue a whole lot more annoying. But at least we've managed to save quite a few. If we can find out where their base is, we might be able to get all of the survivors out in a single day. Shiro scratched her head as she glanced at all of the people that they've managed to recover. Unfortunately, for the ones that died, their souls were consumed by the ghosts, so there was nothing she could do. She can't revive someone if there is nothing to revive. Checking the map, she couldn't find any more people, as this was all of the souls that she could sense. So she walked up to one of the survivors that looked like they could give her some information. Most of them were unconscious, so Shiro decided to talk to the one that Mordrak had just brought in. How are you feeling? She asked as she crouched down in front of the kid. I'm feeling okay. Are you helping us? He asked as Shiro nodded her head. We'll be helping you escape this city. Are there any more people like you lot? There is, but they're not good people, the kid replied with a serious face. Hearing this, Shiro frowned, but shook her head. That was probably to be expected, but she still wanted to see the situation for herself. Do you have a name? Shiro asked, since she might be using this kid that looked around 16 to help her find their base. Arak, the boy replied. I see. All right then, Arak, why don't you show me where everyone is? I can deal with the bad people if you want. Shiro smiled, but Arak furrowed his brows. But there are lots of people there that will try to attack you. He cautioned with worry, and Shiro only laughed. It's fine. If you're that worried, I'll bring someone else with me. We've pretty much got all of the people outside, so we're fine. Lyrica, are you able to come with me? We're going to deal with the people taking advantage of everything. Their XP won't be any use to me. Shiro called out as Lyrica nodded her head. Yeah, I can do that. The average level of people here are only 300 to 400, no? Lyrica walked over. Some of them are 450 to 500. Arak corrected as Lyrica raised an eyebrow. That should be fine then. Plus, Shiro is here. Lyrica smiled as she checked her equipment and put on her gas mask. In that case, then I shall watch by the side like always. Unless it's something you can't handle, I'll just be sitting on your shoulder. Shiro chuckled. Shrinking herself down, she sat on Lyrica's shoulder, and Arak could only look at Shiro in surprise. Here's a gas mask. Put it on, and the miasma won't affect you. We'll protect you, so show us to the shelter. Shiro smiled. What about the people here, then? Won't the ghosts find everyone? He asked, while glancing at everyone in the shop. Don't worry. We have someone that can mask our presence, so unless the ghosts see us with their eyes, they won't know that we're here. Plus, we have a few capable fighters that can drive them away, as well as someone that can control souls. Shiro reassured as Lyrica opened the door and gestured for the kid to follow her. Tightening his grip around his gas mask, Arak put it on and dashed out of the store. The entrance to the shelter isn't too far away. There are multiple entrances, and this is one of them. I only know about 4 entrances, and I'm not sure if the exorcists know about any more. If they heard a commotion, they might choose to leave if they understand they might not win. Arak frowned as he ran towards the alleyways. How? Is that so? I might have to set down a barrier to stop them from running them. Shiro muttered, with a smile. It'll be a barrier that allows for people to enter, but not leave. Also, you might want to give up on this shelter. The people inside aren't good people. They will easily give you up for their own benefit. No one here is willing to stand up for one another, and people become arrogant once they're favored by those at the top. Arak slowed down into a walk as he looked back at the two with seriousness. There's no point helping people like that, he warned. Hearing this, Shiro only chuckled. Perhaps, but we'll see what happens. Shiro shrugged. If they were indeed trash that she shouldn't bother about, then she'll eliminate them should it come down to it. Just because she wanted to help people doesn't mean she gave up on killing. Will you be all right with that? Shiro glanced at Lyrica, who only nodded. I'm fine. Things are difficult now, which means people need to band together to survive. For people to take advantage of one another in a time like this, there's no point giving them mercy. Asharia doesn't have space for this kind of people. Lyrica nodded as she unsheathed her sword. Twisting her body, a wave of fire exploded out as it evaporated a ghost that wanted to drop down from the rooftop in order to eat Arak. Don't blame me for what happens then. Arak scratched his head and led them to the first entrance, knocking on the wall a few times in a rhythmic pattern. Shiro could sense the movement of mana as the wall opened to show a tunnel leading down. 2 guards stood at either side of the door, and they glanced at the 3 that had knocked on the wall. Surprised to see that 2 of them had gas masks, the guards were tempted to take them, but even with gas masks, if they can't fight the ghosts, there was no point. Are you finished with your run? They asked, while observing Lyrica, since someone with a body like that would have been claimed by one of the exorcists long ago. Yes, I have. Arak nodded, showing his bag of rations. What about that woman? I don't think she's from this shelter. One of the guards pointed at Lyrica, who had a mini Shiro sitting on her shoulder. Before Arak could say anything, Lyrica walked up. Sorry, I was surviving in a different part of the city. I found 2 gas masks that covered me from the miasma and came across Arak when resting in one of the safe areas where ghosts can't find me. Lyrica explained while acting on guard. Anobe. I see. You must have come across one of the zones that the exorcists set up. The guard nodded. It wasn't strange to see people that have survived by luck since it's only been a few days. You might need to meet the exorcists first, though, since you're new. Arak, you go report your earnings and we'll lead from here. Also, you might want to hide the mask in your inventory. Don't let the exorcists take them, the guard warned. Even though they were selfish, they still had hatred towards the exorcists that exploited them. Looking back at Lyrica with a worried expression, Arak sighed when she gave him a reassuring nod. As the walls closed up once more, Arak stored his Acom mask away. While Arak walked towards the area where he reported his earnings, one of the guards started to lead Lyrica towards the exorcists. Looking at the underground shelter, Shiro narrowed her eyes since the conditions here were awful. Everything here was even shabbier than the slums. There was barely any cloth that could be used as a bed. Everyone slept on the cold, hard ground with guards around the place, keeping a watch on them. Seeing Lyrica, they were surprised to see such a healthy person here, but they didn't dare look for more than a second since the exorcists would probably gouge their eyes out for looking at something that would become their property. "We're here. The exorcists are just beyond this door," the guard stated as he returned to his post. Looking at the door, Lyrica was frowning, since she could already smell the scene of perfume and luxury items. Compared to the place where other survivors are, it's clear that the exorcists thought themselves to be kings. Pushing open the door, Lyrica was immediately greeted with a corridor that had 2 heavily armored guards protecting a door. "State your business." "I'm here to see the exorcists. I'm new," Lyrica stated coldly, as the guards nodded. "To meet the exorcists, you must wear this or we cannot let you meet them," the guards stated as he pulled out a chained bracelet. Cursed bracelet of Barkan. Once equipped, user cannot utilize any form of mana. Physical strength is weakened. Can only be equipped if the user accepts. Once equipped, it binds to the user until the creator is dead or allows it to be removed. Reading this, Shiro smirked and tapped the back of Lyrica's neck. Discreetly transferring some divine energy, Shiro gave Lyrica a knowing wink. If this bracelet cut off the mana, something higher like divine energy was going to work like a charm. Nodding her head, Lyrica grabbed the bracelet and equipped it onto her wrist. Flinching slightly, she started to walk towards the door, but they stopped her once more. "Your little companion has to stay." They pointed at Shiro, who shrugged. Leaving a small nanotech eye on Lyrica, Shiro jumped off and floated to one of the pillars within the corridor and waited there. Seeing this, they finally allowed her in. Pushing open the door, Lyrica was assaulted by the smell of scented candles and roses. There was a faint pink veil of mist that blocked her sight. Walking through this mist, she saw 6 people sat in separate chambers, surrounded by either handsome men or beautiful women, wearing skimpy outfits. Already feeling her rage increase, Lyrica narrowed her eyes. "There's a newcomer. State your buy." "Oh my." One of the exorcists paused after seeing Lyrica's appearance. "Well, hello there. What brings someone like you here?" He smirked. "There's a way to bring everyone out of the city. There's no need to live under the fear of the ghosts. If you bring everyone out, we can treat their poisoning by the miasma." Lyrica decided to just get to the point, since staying here only grossed her out. "Oh, I already know of a way out. But why should we go out when life is amazing here? People serve us like gods and resources are plenty for us." He grinned. "If you enter my harem, I can give you the same benefits. If not, you can just die since you heard too much. Honestly, why would you even accept wearing a bracelet that makes you useless?" He snickered. Pausing for a moment, Lyrica looked up at the exorcists. "How unfortunate. A demi-goddess has just sentenced you to death." "But haha, what are you talking about? A demi-goddess? Are you delusional?" The man laughed, but Lyrica only shook her head. "I'm not delusional. In this new age, anything can happen. You could have been unfortunate and die on the first day. Though, I suppose they can be counted as fortunate, considering the fact that they wouldn't need to meet trash like you. You could have accidentally annoyed a high-level monster and get killed by them during the second day. You could have died due to natural causes, but out of all the things that you could have chosen to do, you decided to become trash. And by doing so, you have chosen the worst way to die." Lyrica sighed as golden runes appeared on her body. Glancing down at the cuff, she scoffed and crushed it to dust. Seeing this, all of the exorcists in the room immediately activated their skills, but their talismans were shredded to pieces. "Eh?" Looking at his hand in confusion, the man that had asked Lyrica to enter his harem noticed that all of his fingers had been cut off. Turning to Lyrica, he saw a chained whip that had blades attached to each segment. Flicking her wrist, the whip shrunk down into a sword. Cracking her neck, Lyrica stomped down as the scenery immediately changed. The walls were gone, and an infinite stretch of land appeared in front of them. There was an array of flowers laid out, and each of them shimmered under the sunlight. Without saying anything, Lyrica stabbed her sword into the ground, as all of the flowers erupted with fires that matched their petal colors. Flaming vines shot out of the ground and stabbed into their bodies. Honestly, this death might be a little too good for you since your life essence is being put to good use. Lyrica sighed. But at least you won't get to reincarnate. Narrowing her eyes at the exorcists, the last thing they saw was a beautiful elf standing in the middle of a burning garden. Kresk. In a single moment, their bodies shriveled up as everything had been absorbed into the flowers. Snapping her fingers, the throne world disappeared as there were only dried-up corpses where they stood. Ah! Crying out in shock, those that served. The exorcists could only scramble back in fear as these invincible people that they served were killed in a single moment without fighting back. Similar to Shiro, Lyrica had focused her attention on attack. There's no need to worry about their skills if you can end them before they do anything. Glancing at the remaining people in the room, Lyrica wondered if she should kill them or not, since she has been told that they also oppress the weak. However, Shiro was probably better at this since she could see the color of their souls. If they were evil, the color would be darker. Seems like you've finished everything, Shiro chuckled as she entered, dragging the bodies of both guards while remaining in her tiny form. Seeing a tiny Shiro dragging two armored corpses, Lyrica's seriousness almost broke apart, and she wanted to laugh, but calmed herself. Ahem. I have. You might want to take care of their souls. Also, the barrier around this place might be disappearing soon, so we'll need to deal with the ghosts, Lyrica replied, as Shiro nodded her head. Snapping her fingers, the lantern appeared once more as hooked chains shot out of the ground and into the air. One by one, the souls of the exorcists appeared as the color had long been dyed a murky blue. You know what to do. Shiro smiled while knocking on the lamp. Yes, torture them and make sure they don't die. At least give me a TV since I need something actually enjoyable. The ancient terror sighed as Shiro thought about it for a moment, and nodded. Run, viewers, you know what? Sure, I'm not sure how well this will work, but here you go. Modifying the lantern a little, there was now a small TV the size of a thumb on the side of the panels. Since his soul was inside, this should be rather large for the ancient terror. Oh, perfect. You should have a record of the old shows on the internet, right? Give me all of them. I want to go through them at my own pace. Don't push it too far. But sure, if you forget to torture the souls, I'll take your TV away. Shiro smirked as she dragged the souls into the lantern and looked at the others in the room. Narrowing her eyes, she could see that most of their souls were in the process of becoming murky blue. How? Well, aren't you lot becoming a bit accustomed to power? Some of you are even evil now. You're not good enough to be an Usheria, but you're not evil enough for my lantern. You know what? Why don't I give you a chance? If you can survive out in this city without any help, then you're free to go. As for everything else in this room, I'm taking it away. Shiro smiled as nanobots spread out to every corner and all of Wu. Their luxury items, clothes, and so on were swept away. All right, let's go, Lyrica. I've already marked the good-natured people in the slum-like area. The rest of them can fend for themselves, Shiro said while sitting on Lyrica's shoulder. Ma'am. Making their way down the corridor, Lyrica could see the slums in a bit of a panic since drones were escorting people to one side. The exorcists are dead. I'll be responsible for leading you to safety. Those that have kept a good heart will be brought away as a reward, while those that turn to cruelty must survive on their own, Lyrica said as she walked to the small crowd that had been gathered by the drones. Even in a giant underground shelter like this, the number of good-natured people was simply abysmal. Sighing softly, she shook her head when there was a commotion behind them. Wait, what do you mean by survive on our own? We had to do what we had to do to survive. This isn't fair. They're just leeches that lived off of us. One of the survivors shouted out in anger, but Lyrica only glared at him. Life was never fair, to begin with. Plus, if you do evil things with good intent, your soul wouldn't have turned dark. If anything, blame yourself, Lyrica replied as she led the people to one of the entrances. Within this group, Arak was watching in surprise as they solved everything in an instant. Indeed, with power you can accomplish anything you want, he thought while looking at Lyrica's back. Stopping at the entrance, Lyrica turned to the group. If survivors. Right then, I know you're confused, but don't worry, we're here to help. First take these masks so that you aren't affected by the miasma. Lyrica smiled softly as she started to hand out the masks that Shiro had created just now. Lyrica, you lead the people back to the temporary base that we've set up for now. I'm detecting something big in this city, and I don't think it's that friendly right now, Shiro said as she hopped off Lyrica's shoulder and enlarged herself back to normal size. Are you going to see what it is? Lyrica asked as Shiro grinned. Of course, I trust you to be able to bring everyone back, but if you get into any danger, just pray, and I'll be able to lend you some strength. Shiro chuckled while pushing open the door. Take care. Lyrica smiled and gave Shiro a wave. Giving a wave back, Shiro flew towards the source of this signal. Since mana couldn't be used, she was relying on her soul power. And right now, this signal was a giant mashed-up cluster of souls that seemed to cry out in agony. Even for Shiro, it gave her a feeling of creepiness, which caused goosebumps to appear. But when she arrived, all she saw was a little girl standing in the middle of the road. Her eyes were hollow, and her skin was pale. Her lips were tightly sewed shut, and she was a rather beautiful dress, adorned with several jewels. I did not expect someone like you to be here. But can I ask that you don't interfere with my work? I need to get souls for Her Highness. The young girl said as she glanced at Shiro in the air. Her mouth didn't move at all when she spoke, as Shiro only chuckled. Depends. I presume that your queen is the Ghost Queen? Shiro replied as the young girl nodded. I need to get souls, so I'll be happy if you didn't kill all the ghosts around here. They've been consuming the souls of people in this city, so if I can get a few of them, my queen will be pleased. The girl bowed as Shiro nodded. Well, that's a dilemma. You see, I'm guessing your queen gets stronger with souls, so letting her get all of this is a little disadvantageous for me. Shiro smiled as the girl's aura flared. Then I need to get rid of obstacles, Jasmine LVL 600 Lord of Hallows. So you want to kill me then? Shiro chuckled as she looked at Jasmine, who was clearly ready for a fight. If you stop me from getting souls, then yes. Jasmine nodded her head as her shadow seemed to twist behind her. Well then, I suppose fighting can't be avoided. Why don't we talk for a bit first? I'm curious about your queen after all. Shiro smiled as she made a small table with some chairs. Tilting her head, Jasmine was a little confused, but her aura settled down. Walking over to the chair, she sat down with an excited look on her face. Seems like I can get some good information from her. Shiro thought with a smile, and also sat down. Do you want tea or juice? Shiro offered. Juice, Jasmine replied as she kicked her legs back and forth. Her shadow had returned back to normal, so Shiro understood that she's not preparing to fight. Good choice. So, why don't you tell me about your queen then? You must look up to her a lot. Shiro smiled as Jasmine nodded her head. Her Highness is very nice. She saved my life, so I'm helping her. Jasmine nodded as she brought the cup against her lips. Since her mouth was sewn shut, it was difficult for her to drink, but despite that, not a single drop was spilt. Oh, how did she save you? Shiro asked as she was going to probe for information little by little. Well, I had an unstable soul. If it was left unchecked, I would have died. She helped me by giving me pieces of souls to stabilize me. Though the first few did hurt my body, but I'm alive now, so I'm happy. Jasmine smiled as the stitches stretched painfully. I'm guessing the group of souls attached to you is what helped you stabilize your soul then. Shiro smiled as she narrowed her eyes, and a green glow washed over her pupils. Looking at the assembly of souls crying out for release, she couldn't help but pity them. You can see them as well, aren't they just adorable? Jasmine said in surprise as she roughly grabbed one of the souls that was extending out more than the others. This one is Fred. He's a little naughty and likes to run away a lot. I have to bring him back, otherwise the others will be sad. She smiled softly while grabbing the soul named Fred by the neck and held him up to the mass. Suddenly, hundreds of arms reached out and dragged him back as he could only look at Shiro, begging her to help him as tears flowed out of his eyes. See? He's even crying from happiness since he knows the others miss him. I see. Shiro nodded. As the tea party that was being held in the middle of the ghost city of Tokyo continued, Shiro started to gather more information about the Ghost Queen. Her name was Allura, and she was level 650. During the first day, she was able to kill lots of monsters and gather souls due to the high casualties, and her level and power increased. Even though her level was 650, her capabilities are far higher, considering how many souls she had gathered. According to Jasmine, Allura was able to siphon out the potential from these souls and empower herself. She is also able to make use of their skills if she wanted. There wasn't much else that Jasmine knew since she was only recently helped by the Queen. Upon hearing this, Shiro was a little surprised since she was level 600. She most likely didn't have EXP buffs like what Shiro had, so it was almost impossible for her to reach this level. She helped me during the first day the world crumbled. She found me buried under some debris and helped me stabilize my soul. After giving me all of these friends, she said I had become very powerful so I can help her do some missions. Jasmine smiled happily. So the Ghost Queen is able to make level 600s? From Jasmine's disposition, she seems quite young and naive, hence why I got so much information. It's either that, or her intelligence has been reduced due to all the souls connected to her. Shiro thought with a frown as Jasmine stood up. Ranobis. She's telling me to hurry up now. I need to get some souls for her. Well, I guess our talk ends here then. It's been enjoyable, and you have indeed proven to be very useful. Shiro smiled as her body disappeared. Appearing behind her, Shiro summoned Sylvanas and pierced her body. Widening her eyes, Jasmine looked back at Shiro as her shadow transformed and her aura went berserk. Suddenly, hands erupted out of the shadow as it grabbed one of the souls in the cluster and overlapped it with Jasmine's body. Summoning her own sword, she twisted her body and slashed back while Shiro's sword was still stuck in her. Bending her body back, Shiro was able to dodge the sword as she grabbed Jasmine's ankles. However, a ghastly limb broke apart the stitches near the ankles, and several limbs holding daggers slashed towards Shiro. Tsk! Clicking her tongue, Shiro rolled back as she raised her sword and tried to guard against Jasmine's slashed. Bang! The force of the slash caused her to kneel down as the ground shattered beneath her. Thankfully, Sylvanas was indestructible, so Shiro didn't need to worry about losing it. But it was another matter when thinking about how much damage her body could take. How dare you trick me! Jasmine shouted out, despite her mouth not moving. A dark purple aura exploded out as Shiro instantly felt her body turn sluggish. Seeing purple rashes on her body, she realized that she was being poisoned despite her high resistances. Covering herself with life fire, the purple rashes started to fade away. Her base stats are much higher than what I expected. Shiro thought to herself, since Jasmine's strength was able to force her to kneel down. Flicking her wrist, Shiro opened Jasmine's guard as a luminescent green fire surrounded her blade. It was a different fire to her life fire, and Jasmine noticed her souls becoming unsettled. Wanting to move back, her shadow arms overlapped a different soul over her body as she managed to kick Shiro's wrist, preventing her from slashed at her. Unfortunately for Jasmine, Sylvanas Effect 3, Space Shift. Appearing in front of Jasmine's neck, the sword slashed through the bones without any form of resistance as the head was separated from the body. Turning around, Shiro wanted to deal the finishing blow, but a black tendril shot out of her neck like a web that threatened to consume her. Furrowing her brows, Shiro jumped into the rift and created some distance between the two of them. Watching Jasmine reconnect her head, Shiro wondered if she should use her soul powers. The only problem with that is since Jasmine is the Lord of Hallows, there was no guarantee that using her soul powers could be beneficial for her. If anything, there was a chance that Jasmine could possibly do something to Shiro's soul, so she had to proceed with caution. One step at a time, Shiro thought to herself. During the last short exchange, she had coated her sword with soul fire, and she was able to cut free a few of the souls connected to that mass. This wasn't a confirmed thought, but Shiro figured that if she got rid of all the souls in that mass, Jasmine might lose a large portion of her powers. Suddenly, Black hands appeared behind Shiro as she instantly felt danger behind her. Activating. Boundary! She cut apart all of them at once, but a single finger managed to brush past her hair. You have been tainted slightly. Seeing this notification, Shiro widened her eyes as she jumped into the sky. Next to Jasmine, Shiro noticed a puppet, of sorts whose figure was reminiscent of her own. Is she trying to take my soul? Shiro thought with a frown, since that moment of contact sent chills down her spine. Clicking her tongue, Shiro activated Force of Elements and infused it with a mixture of lightning, fire, and light, piercing through the veil covering this city. A giant golden sword shot down as Jasmine could only look up in shock. Several souls were forced out of the cluster and collided with the sword. Bang! Breaking the sword apart, a wave of souls cried out towards her as Shiro slammed her hand down and summoned her lantern. Raising it up, the wave of souls was taken away without exception. What the hell? At least warn me if you're going to bring in a ton of these ankle-biters. I was watching a show, damn it. The ancient terror complained as the lantern started to shake. Shut up and help me deal with them. Shiro replied as she dismissed the lantern and stomped down. Dashing towards Jasmine, a golden fire lit up on her sword. Ripping apart the stitches around her mouth, a black liquid started to flow out of her. The mouth, as it soon covered a large section of the city. Before Shiro could reach Jasmine, hundreds of eyes opened up as Shiro could feel something tugging at her soul.